Hi, my name is Rodiek, and today I'm going to teach you how to play 5 Ravens. The reason I took down the original video is because I made it just before the Kickstarter, and then I did a little bit more development on the game. So there was a few cards that were inaccurate and a few things that were different. I was getting questions on the inaccurate video, so I just went ahead and took it down. So today I'm going to quickly teach you how to play the game with the final rules. I'm going to ask you to forgive the low quality of this video because I don't have a tripod anymore. It broke. I haven't replaced it yet, and I want to get this video out for you. So let's go in to learn how to play 5 Ravens. Let's discuss setup. 5 Ravens is played by 2 to 4 players, is played in 5 rounds, and takes about 15 minutes to play once you know how to play. At the start of the game, take the 5 clock cards and arrange them where they start from 1 o'clock and go to midnight. There's 5 of them. They help you track the rounds. Give every player a stack of Raven cards. They all have women on them. They are numbered 1 to 9. We're going to play a 3-player game, so we're going to put up this 4th set. And then you're going to shuffle the deck of relics. All the relics have a reddish hue on them and do not have women on them. Now, in a 2-player game, you're going to randomly remove 8 of these and put them away, so you don't know what's removed. But for our time, every player gets one of these. We're going to shuffle these, and we're going to get started. The first thing we're going to do each round is the prelude, which is effectively setting up the round to be played. First, you have relic cards equal to the number of players playing, and one of those is always face down. So if we're playing with 2 players, you have 2 cards with 1 face down. If you're playing with 3 players, you have 2 cards with 1 face down. And if you're playing with 4 players, you have 3 cards with 1 face down. Then, every player draws 4 cards from the top of their deck, just as they would in a game like Dominion, but remember it's 4 cards, not 5. Now, let's get started. Next, we're going to go on the mission, which is the meat of the game. Every round, we're all going to get one of the relics out there. We have to, it's not a choice. Most of them are good, some of them are bad, so you want to try to augment this towards things you really want. On your turn, starting with the first player, whoever has the clock cards, and proceeding to the left, you're going to play until all players have played a thief. On your turn, you have 2 options. 1, you could play a card for its action. That's the text on the top of the card. Or you could take a card and play it face down as your thief. Here, the rank, the number in the top left, is what will matter, as that determines the order that you will choose your relic, with higher being better than lower, and ties being resolved from the left of the first player. So, I'll explain all these cards in a second, but I can either play a card from my hand for its action on the top, resolve it, then discard it once it's fully resolved, or I could play a card face down as a thief. Once you play a card face down as a thief, you must pass your additional turns, and players can keep going and playing additional actions until they too also play a thief. One thing to note is that if you have only 1 thief left in your hand, it must be played as the thief. 1 raven left in your hand, it must be played as a thief. So here I couldn't play her and then be like, oh, I don't have a thief. I'd have to play it face down. So, we all played our actions, we augmented things to our liking, and we all 3 played a thief. This is where you play a card face down in order to use it to steal a relic. So at the same time, we reveal our thieves, 7, a 4, and a 7. Okay, highest goes first, and because we have a tie here, first player breaks the tie. Now let's say, so I would go first here, but let's say it was like this. Tie goes to the left of the first player, so they would break the tie, then this person, then this person. So I will choose first. I like this 4-point relic. I know that it's worth points because I look in the bottom right. So this goes to my discard. This person doesn't like the 2, and let's say they think they know what this is, so they'll take this one. Now they can keep this secret because it's face down, and what I'd like to do is usually just put it on the bottom of my discard pile, and then they, of course, have to take this last one. So that is the phase where we all take our relics. It's really simple. Fictionally, the thief we sent to capture the relic was captured by the Baron's men. So we now have to capture them now. This is where you take the card, you turn it sideways, and if you had existing captured cards, either by playing other cards or it's farther in the game, you just stack them up so that you could read the text on the side. Now some cards, when you capture them like this, will say on capture with special text. You resolve it at this time. I'll go into the detail on the 7 in a second, but it says rescue 1 card, which means I have to take 1 card, relic or thief, and rescue it, which means I take it out and put it back on top of my deck. So now that we've all captured our cards, we move on to the next phase. Finally, after we all have our relics, and we've captured our card that we used, we discard any remaining cards in our hand. They go to our discard pile. The relic that you captured also goes in the discard pile. You give the clocks to the player who chose a relic last. So going last gives you an advantage, which means next turn you get to go first. The 4 chose their relic last, so they go first. And then they get rid of the top clock card. If there are no more, when the last clock card is removed, the game is over because you've played 5 rounds. You remove 5 clocks. That is how you play a round. Now let's get into the ravens and the relics. The basic rules of 5 ravens are not terribly complex. You're basically playing cards for their action, resolving what they do, and ultimately simultaneously playing cards for their rank to get relics that give you points. However, the complexity comes in the raven cards, which effectively have 3 uses. 1, the action in the top, which is here. 2, their rank, which dictates the order in which they're going to choose a relic. But then also their capture ability, which may give you new benefits over the course of the game. So really you're choosing which cards do I want for their action now versus which cards am I willing to lose from my deck when they become captured to gain their bonus, which may augment your strategy. So let's go through them each one at a time. When played for her action, the 1 lets you replace 1 face-up relic. That means 1 relic here in the center that's face-up. I could take it, and so I'll say I want to replace the 2. You choose the relic first, put it on the bottom, and then draw a new card from the top. I'll remind you of this in a second when I go through the relics, but whenever a curse comes out, either a cursed skull or cursed bones, you lock it, which means you turn it sideways. This means you cannot manipulate it further. You can't look at it, you can't replace it, any of that. And the reason that's important is that when she is captured, the 1 gives you a new action. That means once per round, instead of playing a card from your hand, you can use her action, which lets you lock 1 relic. So you could say, lock this one, nobody gets to look at it or mess with it. Or let's say you're trying to get illustrious gems because they're worth more points the more you have, you can lock it. So that's what the 1 does. The 2 is a very flexible card. She's basically the Swiss Army knife of the game. She lets you use the action of a captured card. So you play her for her action, and then she lets you use the action of a captured card, which means even though they're out of your deck, using the 2, you can use them again. So I could use the 3s to examine one relic, which would let me look at this and see what it is. Ooh, full points. Or I could use the 6, which lets me flip a relic and mix them. So I could say flip this and then mix these up using the 6's power. So the 2 is effectively a Swiss Army knife that lets you access your tableau even though the cards are captured. When the 2 herself is captured, during theft, you could steal the bottom relic instead. So let's say you know that these aren't any good or you don't want them. Instead of taking one of these, you could take the bottom card of the deck, which was a 2. You don't have to take from the bottom. It's just a option. It's a may. Now, if multiple people have a 2, that means multiple people can take from the bottom, and you're going to take in turn order, which means you may get in the area where you're stacking cards up from the bottom in hopes that somebody takes from the bottom first before you. The 2's really fun. She really opens up the game. The 3 is the spy, and she lets you get information. You can play her for action to examine 1 relic, which means you can look at a face-down relic, and you could privately take it and see what it is. Hey, now you know what the 4 is. Or, when she's captured, just like the 1, she gives you a once per round action to examine the top or bottom relic. And that means of the deck. So you can see what's coming up, so maybe you do or don't want to replace a card. Or you could see what somebody tucked. So if you have the 2, you know what you could take. Or if you don't have the 2, you know what you need to bury under there to keep somebody else from getting it. So the 3 is all about getting information. The 4 is a classic hand management card. She lets you cycle, which means I play her, and then I can discard any number of cards from my hand. Now remember, these don't go into your discard pile until the action's fully resolved, which means I can't discard them and then maybe draw them back. So I cycle these 2 cards, so 2, which means I then get to draw 2 cards from my deck, and once I do that, all of these cards go away. So the 4 herself doesn't give you a card draw. She gives you the option to discard cards to do a card draw. So you're going to have fewer cards when it's over. Now, the 4, when she's captured, gives you a game end bonus, which is that if you have at least 3 relics captured, she gives you a bonus 3 points. If you have 4, it's still 3. If you have 5, it's still 3. And if you have 2, you get nothing. So if you have at least 3, you get 3 bonus points. The 5 is your classic culling style card in a deck builder. She lets you capture, which means you're going to capture a card from your hand. So I could say capture my 3, which means I then gain access to her capture bonus ability. Or if I had a relic in my hand, I could capture this to A, get it out of my deck so it doesn't waste space, but B, remember that 4 that says if you have at least 3 relics captured? Well, that would then give me those in-game points. Now, the 5's capture bonus is that on capture, she also has to capture the relic she stole. Now, this is useful, especially at the end of the game in the last round, because typically you need an extra round to, like, say, get the cursed skull, play the 5 to capture it. But let's say at the very last round, I really need that other skull for its bonus. I could play the 5 as my thief, and because of her ability, she also captures the relic that she herself captured. So it's sort of a more efficient 2-at-1. The 6 is probably my favorite card in the game. Her action is very straightforward. You flip a relic and you can then shuffle face down relics. So that's a basic information hiding thing. That's really good if you have only low value cards. So you want to, example, hide the 4 because you don't have a powerful enough card to take it. So you can flip a card, this, and then you can mix these so nobody knows where they are. Or if you want to gain information, you can flip a card the other way so that there's perfect information. However, her capture bonus is basically my favorite card in the game, which is that on capture, if you use her to capture a chest, and a chest obviously has a chest, and only a chest, the chest is automatically captured with her, and its score is doubled at the end of the game, which means that if you use the 6 to capture it, that's worth 8 points. And it's this really fun risk versus reward thing of trying to turn a card into a very good card. But the problem is that if other people haven't used their 6s yet, and you're not first player, if you all use a 6, then one of you will get it, and then the rest of you will whiff with these other things that don't double. If you rescue the 6 using the 7, that card loses its double value, so it's still just a 4. So if you want to preserve her doubling ability, you need to keep the card with it. And I like to set them like this so it's really clear which card she's doubling. I love the 6. I debated back and forth on whether she was too complex, but she was so much fun that I decided to keep her in the end. The 7 seems a little complicated, but she's not too bad. Her action is that you draw the top relic, so you get to see what it is. So hey, we know it's a 2. And then you can bury it, which means you put it at the bottom of the deck, or you could swap it with a face-down relic. So let's say this was the situation, and I know what this is. I can say, I'm going to replace this one and put this other one under the deck. So this is a good way to bury cards if you have the 2, or gain information. Keep in mind, you can only replace a face-down relic, and you don't get to look at the face-down relic. You only look at the top card, and then you put the face-down relic back under. Now, when she is captured, on capture, she gets to rescue a card. And this is a must, which means that, let's say, I had this situation. When I capture the 7, I can rescue either my 8 or my 6. So the choice here is the 8 is a guaranteed -1 point at the end of the game. Whereas the 6, let's say I whiffed and didn't actually capture a chest, I might want to put her back so that I can take another chance. So when you rescue, you must take a card, relic or thief, and you put it on top of your deck so that you get to draw it again. The 8 is a very powerful hand management card. She lets you take any cards in your hand or your discard pile and place them on top of your deck in any order. This does not include her, because remember, she's played and she's out, and until her action is fully resolved, then she goes into the discard. So this is a way to set yourself up for a better next turn. At the end of the game, she's just worth -1 point. She's so powerful that losing her hurts your efforts. But it's a really good trade-off, so think about it when you want to do it. Finally, the 9 is another hand management card. She lets you draw 2 cards from the top of your deck. Then you must discard 1 card from your hand. It doesn't have to be one of the 2 cards you just drew. It's just any 1 card in your hand. Remember, she does not go to your discard until she's fully resolved, so you can't sit there and cycle your 9. And like the 8, she's just worth -1 point at the end. She's in charge of your Guild of Thieves, and if you lose her, well, that's worth -1 point. Finally, let's talk about the relics in the deck. First, you have the chests, which are really simple. They're just worth 1 to 5 points. Remember, if you capture one with the 6, their point total doubles. You have the illustrious gems. If you have 1 illustrious gem, it's worth 1 point. If you have 2, they're worth 6 points together. So not 6 each, but 6 together. If you have 3, they're worth 9 together. And if you have 4, they're worth 15 together. You then have the Cursed Skull and the Cursed Bones. These are the same, except if you have 3 Cursed Skulls, or if you have 2 or more Cursed Skulls captured, you get a bonus of 5 points. and if you have 2 or more cursed bones captured, you get a bonus of 5 points. They are otherwise worth nothing. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that these are all relics, so let's say you don't get 2 of them. If you have 1 captured, though, it can still count towards the 3 relics you need to trigger the 4's points. So they're not worth anything, but if you capture at least 2, then you get a 5-point bonus, and they can feed into the 4. Be careful to not tuck these till the end, because then you're going to get stuck with them, and you'll have to use your 5 to actually capture them at the same time. And then finally, Corporeal Hollow is just worth 1 point. However, it's worth 3 points if you capture it. So it's not 1 plus 3, it's just if you also capture it, its value goes up to 3. So those are the relics that are shuffled in that randomly come out. So that's the 5 Ravens tutorial. As you can hopefully see, the basic game is not that hard. You draw out relics equal to the number of players, with one of them being face down. You all draw 4 cards from your deck. You're then going to play actions using your cards, or you're going to play one face down as a thief for its number. Once you all pick a thief, then that phase ends. Then, in order of highest thief to lowest, with ties broken to the left, you're all going to choose 1 relic, which goes to your discard pile. Then, the card you used as your thief gets captured. You turn it sideways, and then you have to respect her capture ability or bonus or penalty. And then finally, you're going to discard any remaining cards in your hand, pass the clocks to the player who played last, get rid of a clock to track the time, and you're going to do that until the game's over. Really, the cards are relatively simple. They're all about hand management and information management. However, the trickiness comes from how you sort of build your tableau of abilities. Do you want to be able to take cards from the bottom and get extra flexibility? Do you want to be able to lock cards to guarantee the ones you get? Do you just want to play high cards to get really valuable cards and not really care what your tableau does? There's a lot of variety in the game. It's a really chubby, hairy little filler. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this is helpful. If not, ask me questions in the comments or email me at grant@hyperboligames.com. Thanks for purchasing 5 Ravens, and thanks for your continued support.